Passing through York, Maine, and I wanted to stop and show you this cemetery, the Old York Cemetery, I believe it's called. There are some interesting burials here, but the most notable one is Mary Nasson, the Witch of York, Maine, or the Old Witch of York, Maine. She was buried here in 1774, and she actually has a big slate stone over where she's buried. Gotta love this semi-creepy church bell music here that kind of stops and then starts again. So Mary Nasson was born in 1745 and grew up here in York. She was a respected herbalist and was known for her healing knowledge with various plants and natural herbs, things like that. And apparently she was also known for her expertise in exorcisms, cleansing homes of demons and afflictions, and these things gave her the affectionate nickname, the White Witch. Probably a name of endearment to some, but who knows. Now, she married Samuel Nasson, and they had 6 children together, but just 1 year after her 6th child, she passed away at 29 years old. This is her portrait on her gravestone here. According to the legend, this massive granite slab was placed here to prevent the White Witch from crawling out of her grave. And I've definitely heard of these things before. And this comes from a time when witches were feared. 1600s, 1700s, the witch trials. You know, this stuff was very real back then. However, it is also likely that her husband had this slab placed here to prevent animals from getting at her grave. I believe these were called wolf stones. They were more common way back in the day. You don't see them as much anymore because over the centuries, over time, they were pulled up and repurposed for building materials. A lot of times cemeteries use them to make walls. So rather than just having this giant stone here, they just built walls all around the cemeteries that would keep the animals from getting in here. But there are some questions that remain, at least for me. One is, why is Mary Nasson's grave separated from everyone else? It's pretty isolated here. There's one that's fairly close by, but all of the graves, the majority of the graves, are away from hers. And the other one is, if in fact this was just a wolf stone, why is hers the only one to remain? That's what's so strange. There are no other wolf stones. They're incredibly rare, and makes you wonder if there is some real truth to the White Witch legend. There's a plaque here that says, "Within these walls before you is a monument to the numerous victims of the York Candlemas Day Massacre, 1692. Many who shaped the destiny of the town in the 17th and 18th centuries rest here under trees planted at the time of their burials or later." So pretty old trees. This one is one of the more interesting ones. This woman died suddenly at her friend's house. It's just odd that it says it. Strange. Hoping that the rain will hold out here. Gloomy day, very fitting for a tour of an old cemetery. This cemetery isn't very big at all because, you know, York was just a small village. And then they stopped using this, which is weird that they did because there's plenty of room in here. But the quote-unquote new cemetery sits behind this beautiful church that's just across the street. Now check this out, the old schoolhouse. Doors open. So we're gonna check it out. Whoa. That is cool. Look at those floors. Here's a quick look at the surrounding areas here. Beautiful old buildings, a lot of history here in York. So there's a plaque here that talks about the Candlemas Day Massacre in 1692. It's about the raid of York. During the late 17th century, this area was part of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, and tensions between colonists and Native Americans were high. In January of 1692, some French and Native Americans launched a surprise attack on York in the middle of the night, and the area was burned and looted. Hundreds of colonists were killed, and the attack really exposed the vulnerability of colonial settlements and increased the fears, the tension, even more so, that caused the settlers to fortify their towns and strengthen their munitions and their militias. And there's a monument not too far away from this. Real quick, I just wanted to bring you over here. It's a few miles away, but this is the memorial for the massacre of people that were killed in their sleep, basically. This was erected in 1949. It's out here kind of in the middle of nowhere, but this is where they put it. Interesting story, though. The history of York, Maine is an interesting one. All right, I'm getting back on the road, getting out of this rain. See you in the next video.